In this video, we'll finish up the journal entry. The print screen of all the formulas used is provided on my page. I highly recommend reading through it, copy it to your spreadsheet, and try it out when watching along with this video. Before we move on, let's read the disclaimer. Okay, let's move on to the journal entry. Here you see me edit the table journal and their language descriptions. Let me drag down the toolbar a bit to include the journal entry button. Click it and go to the journal entry. Here I've already copied and pasted the toolbar and the title from the master table worksheet. For the reference column, what I need is 1 repeating 6 times, then 2 repeating 6 times, and roll it all the way up to 18, which is the last number of the receipt reference. Repeating the same number 6 times because we need 6 positions to hold that 3 debits and 3 credits until we reach the last number of receipt reference. After getting the sequence with the row formula, we then divide it by 6, which is the number of positions we need for each repeating number. When we round it up to the nearest digit, we'll get the repeating sequence. Here for the position column, I highlighted and Ctrl 1 to go to Format Cell to give it a dark background with white fonts because we use black to identify columns that will be hidden. For the position column, when we -1 to the original row formula, we get 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Now we add a mod formula with the divisor 6, then we get a repeating sequence of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go back to the column's first cell and add 1, then you'll see the repeating sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Usually, I'll go to the first cell of the table, which is cell D6, and Alt-OD to bring up the conditional format, and add rules so that when the ref number is 6, we add an underline. We do that because it's easier to separate the repeating reference sequence, which also refer to our transactions reference. We usually add a freeze pane besides the position column because we need to refer to the position column very often. Here, let me change the reference column so that it will stop repeating the sequence when it reaches the maximum number of all transactions, which is in the receipt interface. Any extra rows can be cut out just to save some load time. Now the reference stops rolling after 18. Here I rearrange the lookup column, but I realized that I also made a mistake in this correction. So let me jump to the lookup debit amount and lookup credit amount column. Here I paste the formula under the lookup debit amount column, and I'll go through this line by line when I laid out the debit amount under the debit amount column. You can start typing the formula after my explanation. It's much easier than copying without knowing the meaning behind. Similarly, I paste the lookup credit amount formula. Here I spot the typo in the debit tree of the master table. I also changed the lookup column so that I'll point to the free debits and free credits column from the master table. Now we move on to the GL account number column. Here I use an index match formula to look up from the indirect of the lookup column using the journal reference to match with the reference column of the master table. Here I notice that some GL account numbers are string instead of numerical values. Before I use the value formula to force the whole column into numerals, I figure out that it's easier for me to go back to apply the value formula to all the GL account numbers. Now I can keep the original GL account number formula. Once we get the GL account number done, we can use the GL account number to look up for the GL account name from the chart of accounts. We use the journal's language selection as the source language. Here I'm testing out different languages. Let me change the GL account name formula to get rid of the NAs. Finally, we reach the debit amount column. Here we make use of the lookup debit amount column and match the journal entry reference to the indirect of the ref column of the range under lookup debit amount column. Now the debit amounts pop up for each transaction's 6 positions. Now add the if error formula to get rid of the NAs. Let me copy the debit amount formula to the credit amount column and change it this way. Go back to the vendor invoice and copy the reference description. Here I drag down to enlarge the toolbar. Then go back to journal entry and paste it on top of the journal reference column. I copy and paste the journal reference description to those non-black columns. I also cut and paste the journal entry title somewhere. Here I group all the black columns so that I can hide them. I can now switch the language to have a quick look on our journal entry. I notice that I need language descriptions for these two amount columns, So I go back to the list of fields and add these two field names, debit amount and credit amount. Type out the Japanese and Chinese descriptions as well. Go back to the journal entry and hide the column head. And we are done with the journal entry. So let me go through some of the transactions as a check to the formulas we just did.